starting to order. Welcome everyone. It is Wednesday, January 25th. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Council President Miller.
Present.
Councilor Underwood.
Present.
Councilwoman Anthony.
Present.
Councilman Espinal. Absent. Senior Deputy Majority Leader Gonzalez.
Present.
Councilwoman Gray. Absent. Deputy Majority Leader Harris. Absent. Councilwoman Peterson. Absent. Council President Pro Tempore Machado.
Present.
Councilor Royas.
Present.
Councilwoman Ryan. Absent. Majority Whip Sanchez.
Present.
Majority Leader Taylor.
Present.
Councilwoman Vargas.
He's here, he just wanted that.
Oh, Councilwoman. And Councilman Vargas.
Present.
10 present, 5 absent. We have a quorum.
Thank you. Madam Clerk, would you like to read the first item?
Yes. Presentation given by Lynn Reddish, Staff Attorney Education Coordinator from the Rhode Island State Ethics Commission, and Rosa Arias Perry, City of Providence Municipal Integrity Officer, relative to ethics training.
Beautiful, thank you. So thank you everyone for coming tonight, and thank you so much to the clerk for organizing this training for us. So council as a whole is an opportunity for us to meet, have discussions following open meetings without really having any decisions on the table. So it's a perfect opportunity for us to do a training like this. I want to thank our trainers tonight, and I will turn it over. So we have Lynn Radisha, Lynn Radishis from the State Ethics, and then really excited that we have two folks from our city department here tonight. So we have Rosa Arias Perry and Daniel Felix. I'm going to turn over to Rosa and we'll get going. Thank you.
Good afternoon. Thank you for having us, and we're really excited about today's ethics training.
We are going to take a slight pause. We have a very special guest who just joined us.
Mary Lee
Don't mean to interrupt. But I spoke with Council President the other day, and truly, I'll tell you, this city means the world to me. The neighborhoods, the people, and I'll say this: over the years, we worked most closely, more than the mayor's office, with the council. And this police department, I do want to say, I mean, I so wish I was continuing, and I almost did. I had this tremendous opportunity in front of me, and I swear, I double thought it. I almost stayed back here because of my love for the city and what we're doing. We're in good shape here, and I'm happy for the new leadership. I don't know some of you personally or well, but I'll say this in walking out. I won't take a lot of your time. Some will go way back, right? And it's important to stay close with the police department in the work we do in the community. And I'll say this, and I asked others to hold us accountable. Keep our feet to the fire. That's important. It really is. And I think leadership, and I say this all the time, we built a culture of leadership in the police department. We really have. And we have some, and that's why I've said publicly, I know the mayor has a hard decision on who my successor will be, who the next police chief will be, but it's about ethical leadership. It really is. And it ties into what your session is tonight. If you don't have integrity and ethical leadership, you know, you can't trust anything, right? In government or in the community. But my heart breaks walking away from the city of Providence, but wonderful opportunity, and I'm keeping an eye on it. I'll be back a lot. So thank
Can we get a picture with all of us after?
Yeah. So,
Good luck.
Chief, I also want to take a moment and thank you on behalf of this council, on behalf of all of the councils past, many councils, during the first year leadership.
Wow.
We heard you leading us speak, we wanted to, so for everyone who can't see it, it just says, to Colonel Hugh Clements Jr., Chief of Police, Providence Police Department, in recognition of your dedicated service to the Providence Police Department and the City of Providence. The Providence City Council hereby extends their very best wishes on your future endeavors, and thanks you for your commitment and dedication to the citizens of the City of Providence and the date. Thank you. Sorry, guys, less than 5 minutes. All right.
Sorry.
And for you, for you. Oh, man, I was so happy when I saw that.
Yeah.
I was
And I'm this
sad.
side.
You in DC
But it was
Madam President?
Yeah.
You come to this one?
Sure. Yes, I'm actually gonna be there next week.
So you don't have to settle in on my cell phone, or you just saying, I'll have a DC number, but this one, let me know ahead of time, we'll connect.
Absolutely. I'm gonna take it. Oh my God. I'll take you.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Come on, I know where I'm going. Come on. You got 5 minutes for a photo, you better post that. I can take it now. I'm just saying, you know, if you wanted to.
Just kidding.
We'll do one at a time. so-
Wow, pro.
Nice.
How did Councilman Taylor get next to me?
Well, you should be the commissioner.
Ready?
right?
1, 2, 3. Good luck. And then hold on. Please keep going. 1, 2, 3. Another one for good luck. There you go.
Beautiful.
I don't know who's
Thank
going
you.
to. Oh, it's your. Thank you for the patience with the introduction.
Sorry, thank you.
Right. Yeah.
Also, could you, Madam Clerk, note that Councilman Peterson is. So noted. Thank you. All right, now I will turn it over to our municipal integrity officer.
Okay, that was really nice. Thank you for having us again. Thank you to Lynn Rhodesius for coming over from the Rhode Island Ethics Commission. My name is Rosa Arias Perry. I am the Municipal Integrity Officer for the city. I've met a few of you, but I would like to personally introduce myself to all of you. As the city's MIO, it is my mission to encourage all city officials and all city employees to adhere to the highest standard of ethical, or the highest ethical standard of conduct. We, as city employees, as city officials, are bound by not one but two codes of ethics. The Rhode Island Code of Ethics should be looked at as the umbrella code, it's the broader code. The Providence Code of Ethics touches on some points that are not in the state's code, but we're bound by both codes of ethics. If you have any ethics-related questions, or if you need any ethics-related guidance, please contact Leonella or myself. We work as partners in the law department. I need for everyone to know that any advice coming from us is considered confidential, informal advice. So that means that it's non-binding. If you need a formal advisory opinion, then we would show you how to reach out to the Rhode Island Ethics Commission, put you in contact with them, or just guide you through that process. If it's within the Rhode Island Code of Ethics, and if it's a question within the Providence Code of Ethics and you need an advisory opinion, then we would help you reach out to the Providence Ethics Commission, or reach out on your behalf or make the introduction. And I'll introduce you to Leonella. She's our ethics education coordinator.
Hey folks, I think I've met most of you, but I'm Leonella, I go by Leo, and I use she, her pronouns. I'm the ethics education and ADA coordinator for the city, so in this capacity, along with Rose, I help her write the informal opinion that she said, but also do the trainings, ethics trainings for new employees, specific ethics trainings if you need it. So for example, we posted trainings on specifically on campaigns, on nepotism, on different issues that the code covers. So happy to work with you all if you need any sort of trainings. In terms of my other role, which is ADA related, my contact information is on the sheet, but if any of your constituents by any chance want to attend your council meetings and don't know how to get translation or ASL services or whatnot, you can always reach out to me, and then I'll work with the partners that I've established in terms of getting interpretation services or accessibility issues resolved. But if you have any questions, happy to reach out. Please feel free to reach out. I also got a plain English guide. We're going to be covering the Code of Ethics of State and some differentiates between the city code, like Rosa mentioned. So we got some plain English guides to the code, kind of a little handy in terms of content. So if you guys don't mind taking one and taking it with you, it's a really good resource if you have any questions regarding the code. But we're here if you have any questions. So thank you.
Thank you. And now we'll pass it over to Lynn Radishis.
Thank you. I promised that Rosa, Leo, and I did not coordinate outfits. It's like, let's wear a black jacket and gray, shall we? Thank you very much. My name is Lynn Radishis from the Rhode Island State Ethics Commission, and Radishis is what happens when an Irish-Italian girl marries a Greek boy. But, so, thank you for including me tonight and having me tonight and coming out in this tonight. And as I mentioned to President Miller, were I not here, I would be across the street pedaling a stationary bike at Stichel Bar for 45 minutes. So may I just say, thank you. So, welcome. This is an introduction to the Rhode Island Code of Ethics and the Rhode Island Ethics Commission. Big picture stuff here, my friends. There is no test at the end. No one expects you to memorize anything that you hear tonight. All of this information will be available to you after this evening, whether you want to have a copy of the Code of Ethics that's available online or from my office, or whether you want to call the Ethics Commission and speak with one of us. If you leave here tonight knowing that there is a State Ethics Commission, when you might need us, and how to get a hold of us, please put that in the win column, because I certainly will, okay? I am happy. I will stay as long as you like. I will answer as many questions as you want to ask. I do ask a favor. I ask that you do your best to please hold your questions until the end. And my reason for this is twofold. In my experience, 98% of the time, the question that's formulating in your head that you want to ask is the very next slide. You'll find that out. Also, people will be, thinking about what's coming, and that's a good thing, and having questions. It might get addressed 6 minutes from now. And if I stop our train and veer off to cover that question, it's a little tough to get back on track, and I don't want to keep anyone later. So here's the deal. If you simply cannot go on until your question is answered, raise your hand, we'll address it. Otherwise, jot them down, and we'll take them at the end. Thank you very much. What you are looking at right now is Article 3, Section 7 of our state constitution, addressing ethical conduct. Let's read it together. The people of the state of Rhode Island believe that public officials and employees must adhere to the highest standards of ethical conduct, respect the public trust and the rights of all persons, be open, accountable, and responsive, avoid the appearance of impropriety, and not use their position for private gain or advantage. I have to stop here. When I said let's read it together, never in my life, in over 100 times, has everyone read it out loud. And that was wonderful. I'm going to ask people to do that from now on. So what happened is I look at and I start reading and I hear people talking and I'm like, what's going on? Should I turn around? Then I realize you're reading it and it actually gave me some feels. I'm not going to lie. So that's what the state constitution expects from us. And we will talk more about the appearance of impropriety as we go on. The Rhode Island Ethics Commission is a constitutionally mandated body. We have to exist, authorized to adopt, administer, and enforce the state of Rhode Island's Code of Ethics and Government. Next slide, please. So before we dig into the Rhode Island Code of Ethics, I want to just kind of orient us all to just talk about ethics in general for a minute, okay? So ethics, a standard or philosophy of right and wrong human behavior based on logical reasoning. So ethical conduct is just the type of behavior that a logical person would agree is the right thing to do under the circumstances. But here's the thing, people have different ideas about what makes behavior right and wrong, right? Next slide, please. We have ethics based on culture. Ever hear, when in Rome, do as the Romans do? Many people think that whether something is ethical depends on the setting in which it occurs, taking into account the local culture, habits, customs. Hey, this is the way we should use ethics, but more on that momentarily. We have ethics based on consequences. Ever hear, well, the end justifies the means here, or all's well that ends well? Ethical or unethical conduct is determined by looking at the results. Ethical conduct is just behavior that results in more positives in both quantity and quality. That's not the way the Ethics Commission views ethics either. Next slide, thanks. How about ethics based on character, where ethical conduct is determined by asking, what would a virtuous person do under these circumstances? The focus there is on one's character, one's motives. Hey, I'm a decent individual. How could I possibly violate something called the Code of Ethics? Even character is not the measure by which ethical behavior is held through the Rhode Island Ethics Commission. So what is? We at the Ethics Commission are asking you to please focus on your action, forget the result, okay? The Code of Ethics tells us what actions to avoid without regard to culture, without regard to consequence, even without regard to character. Ethical or unethical conduct is determined not by looking at the results, but by looking at the behavior itself and judging its inherent rightness or wrongness. Next slide, please. So before I get into the code, let's look a little at the makeup of the Rhode Island Ethics Commission. There are 9 members of the Rhode Island Ethics Commission. They're all appointed by the governor. The governor selects 4 members of his, her, or their own choosing, and selects the other 5 members from lists of 3 to 5 names that have been submitted by the leaders from both the House and the Senate. Right now, we have 7 members of the Ethics Commission. We are anxiously awaiting the appointment of 2 more, because more heads are better, more brains are better, more hearts are better, more people. We want to have a full complement, and soon we will. So take a look at how powerful the Ethics Commission is: advisory, investigative, adjudicative, and in some instances, removal powers. I'm told that if someone's in enough hot water with the Ethics Commission that they're about to be removed from their position, chances are that person's already stepped down. While serving on the Ethics Commission, its members are prohibited from holding or campaigning for public office. They may not hold office in any political party or on any political committee, nor may they participate in or contribute to any political campaign. Not so much as a sign on the front lawn if you are on the Ethics Commission or a member of the staff. Next slide, please. I am one of 5 attorneys at the Ethics Commission. Our executive director and chief prosecutor is a gentleman named Jason Remitt. Some of you may know Jason. He became the executive director in April of 2018. Before that, he had my job for 20 years. Guy knows ethics, okay? I joined the Ethics Commission in September of 2018. I have my background as an attorney spans 25 years, and you could pretty much divide it almost in half by time serving in the public sector and in the private sector. And without a doubt, my public service has been the most challenging and rewarding work of my life to date. My public service included being a clerk to the Superior Court judges when I got out of law school. I then achieved the reason I went to law school, and that's to become a criminal prosecutor at the Attorney General's office. I did that for 5 years, and did a little foray into private practice. Right before the Ethics Commission, I was a staff attorney in the Rhode Island Family Court, and I was a CASA attorney, so I represented children birth to 21 whose parents had been charged with abuse or neglect by DCYF. I had I probably worked with 450 to 500 children in my tenure there. I was literally the old woman in the shoe at that time. And then the Ethics Commission, I wasn't looking. A couple of people said there's an opening, I think you'd be a good fit, you should go check it out. And I'm the type of person that if something comes to me without me searching it out, I pay a little closer attention. And so that's what I did, and I'm happy to be here. We have 3 investigators. They are all former police officers or detectives. They certainly know their way around an investigation. Our financial disclosure officer, more of a guru actually, is Michelle Berg. If you have a question about financial disclosure, Michelle is your contact person, okay? There are 12 of us at the Ethics Commission. We hang out right across the street, 45, okay? Next slide, please. Who's subject to this code anyway? Well, you can see all state and municipal elected officials, all state and municipal appointed officials, and all employees of state and local government, and members of state and local boards, commissions, and agencies, all subject to the code. Conflicts of interest. Okay, we're going to cover many topics tonight. My way of approaching things is rather than to pick 2 or 3 sections of the code and hammer them into you, I'd rather just give you a little introduction into just about everything we cover, let it kind of fall over you and pick up what you can. I start with conflicts of interest because conflicts of interest and nepotism, pretty much the bread and butter of the Rhode Island Ethics Commission. So next slide, please. A person subject to the Code of Ethics, that's you, that's me, may not participate in any matter if it is reasonably foreseeable. What do I mean by that? More than conceivable, less than certain. Talk about a lot of airspace, right? If it is reasonably foreseeable that he, she, or they, I'm going to tell you right now, the code is a little behind in its language, so the slides reflect what the code says. I try and do my best to be more inclusive during trainings, and hopefully they shall all catch up to one another at some point. Or any family member, or any business associate, or any business by which they are employed or represents will derive a direct monetary gain or suffer a direct monetary loss by reason of their official activity. So here's something that sometimes comes as a surprise to someone. Someone might say, you know, if I take part in this vote, there may be a financial impact to me, but I'm probably going to lose money. So that's not really a conflict of interest. I don't need to recuse, right? Wrong. The code makes no distinction between financial gain and financial loss. The concern is financial impact. So you have to be careful about taking any action, not just voting, even the discussions leading up to the vote, and we'll talk about that more. If it's going to financially impact you, a member of your family, your business associate, or a private employer, you've got a conflict and you're going to need to recuse. Thank you. Let's talk about business associates, because there are many regulations and statutes in the code that address business associates, so I'd like you to have a working knowledge of who your business associates are. By definition, they are persons or entities with whom you are joined to achieve a common financial objective. Not the best definition I've ever seen. Let's look at some examples to see if it can be more clear. Your business partners are your business associates. Those are the fairly obvious ones, right? People you have hired are your business associates. Think attorney, accountant, realtor, contractor, you get the idea. The Ethics Commission has determined that the landlord-tenant relationship is one of business associates. And this next one is important but often forgotten. Any businesses or organizations, that includes not-for-profits, okay? If you are an officer or serve on the board of directors, and that's regardless of whether you are paid for your service, you are a business associate not only of the organization, but of the other members of the board or the other leaders of that organization. Okay, next slide, thanks. Now, business associate relationships do not necessarily remain ongoing forever. So I'd like you to have an idea of what the Ethics Commission looks at when they're trying to determine the existence of a business associate relationship. They're going to ask, are these parties conducting ongoing business transactions? Are there outstanding accounts between the parties, just one or the other money? Is there an anticipated future relationship between these parties? An answer of yes to any of these questions is pretty much going to trigger the existence of a business associate relationship. Thanks, next slide. Family members. The code talks a lot about, oh yes.
You didn't specify like employees, does that count as a business associate also?
Your employees?
Yeah.
We say your employer, quite possibly. Let me noodle that one over, okay? That's a very good question. And it feels like an easy answer, but I'm afraid to go, oh, yes, of course, or no, definitely. I'm gonna write that down and get back to it. Employees, okay. So, you know what, yes, your employees in a private business are your business. Let me get back to that one. Okay, that's it. Yeah, good, thank you. Family members, whether by blood, marriage, or adoption, there's your list of people that are your business associates, or your family members. Back, please. Thank you, that's okay. Your spouse, your parents, your children, your siblings, grandparents and grandchildren, aunts and uncles, nieces and nephews, and first cousins, whether by blood, marriage, or adoption. If you see a rule in the code that says something about your family member, this is who we're talking about. So someone might say to me, you know, Lynn, I haven't spoken to my sister in 4 years. If she comes before me in my public capacity, I would no more go out of my way to help her than I would to hurt her. I'll treat her like anybody else. No conflict of interest. I don't need to recuse, right? Wrong, right? As unfortunate as a situation as that would be, a family member is a family member is a family member, regardless of the status of your relationship at any given time. Now, the same person might say to me, Lynn, I'm a lot closer to my best friend than I am to my sister. If my best friend comes before me in my public capacity as a member of the Providence City Council, do I need to recuse? How many say, yes, I do, if my best friend comes before me? How many say, no, I do not have to recuse if my best friend comes before me? And how many just want to wait and hear the answer and not say anything? That would be me at any meeting, at any time. So let me tell you this. Technically speaking, under the Code of Ethics, if your friend comes before the City Council, you are not required to recuse. And here's one of the reasons why. Can you imagine the job of the Ethics Commission trying to assign a value to your friendship with someone? What do they ask? Did you meet in kindergarten? Did you date in high school? Do you take each other's kids back and forth to practices or rehearsals? Do you text twice a year, twice an hour? Can't do it. But remember that constitutionally founded goal of avoiding even the appearance of impropriety, what our state constitution asks of us. If you have a friend that comes before you in your public capacity, that would be an excellent opportunity for you to exercise the discretion to say, I'm going to recuse because this looks bad, and I care what looks bad. At the very least, because you're not required to recuse, at least ask yourself, can I take part in this really without bias? Am I able to do this? So that sermon's over for now. Okay. Think of a conflict of interest as a situation where your public duties and your private life intersect, okay? I said no test at the end, that is true, but if you leave here today with anything on your mind, make it this. It is not unethical to have a conflict of interest. Doesn't violate the Code of Ethics to have a conflict of interest, said the woman with 31 first cousins, okay? Truly, it is not the conflict that's the problem. The potential problem is the failure to identify and manage that conflict. And we at the Ethics Commission help people do that all the time. Thank you, next slide. So, do I have a conflict of interest? Ask yourself, is it reasonably foreseeable, more than conceivable, less than certain, that a decision that I'm helping to make as part of my public duties will result in a financial benefit or detriment to me, my family or household member, my business associate, or a business by which I'm employed, or possibly one of my employees? I've yet to figure that out. Next slide, please. Ask yourself, even if there's no financial impact, okay? Is a family member, a household member, a business associate, or a business by which I'm employed a party to or participating in the matter that's being discussed? If the answer is yes, you have a conflict of interest. You must recuse from any participation in that matter. Now you'll notice in this slide, in the last slide, the term household member is included. Under the nepotism provisions of the code, which we're going to talk about momentarily, if someone lives in your home, regardless of whether you are related by blood, marriage, adoption, that is a conflict of interest territory situation, okay? Thank you. The act of recusal is relatively simple. We ask that you complete what's called a statement of conflict of interest form, sometimes called a recusal form. You present the original to your presiding officer, and between you decide who's going to send us a copy, because we absolutely want a copy of that recusal form. Thank you. On to nepotism, and one of my new favorite slides that I just found and added to this. And if nepotism exists, my brothers will move it out. Okay, next slide, please. You may not participate in any matter as part of your public duties if there is reason to believe or expect that any person within your family or a household member is a party or participant to that matter, will derive a direct monetary gain, will suffer a direct monetary loss, or somehow obtain an employment advantage by reason of your taking part. Thank you. The code's prohibitions against nepotism apply regardless of whether a family or household member is objectively most qualified candidate for that job, absolutely deserves that promotion. The policy underlying the prohibitions against nepotism in the code recognize that it's just really, really hard for anybody to be truly objective when considering matters impacting their family and household members. Do we think you can do it? Totally not the point. You may very well be able to. Again, don't forget that constitutionally founded goal of avoiding the appearance of impropriety. We remove from you any obligation of having to defend yourself after taking part in a matter involving your family by just taking it off the table. All right? Thank you. So some examples of nepotism, not an exhaustive list, but these do come up from time to time. Hiring someone from your family or household is nepotism. The awarding of a contract to someone in your family or household is also nepotism. Any decision regarding a family member or household member's property, the appointment of a family or household member to a compensated position, and the participation in a disciplinary matter in which your family or household member's employment is at risk. These are all examples of nepotism. Next slide, thanks. Okay, you may not participate in the following: supervision, evaluation, appointment, classification, promotion, transfer, or discipline of anybody in your family or your household. Nor may you delegate that task to a subordinate, someone who works for you. If you can't do something, you can't ask someone who answers to you to do it in your place. Thank you. Now, the Code of Ethics does allow the Ethics Commission to approve what's called an alternate chain of command in certain circumstances where there's conflicts due to nepotism. A couple things to remember. The person that's going to stand in for the person that has the conflict of interest has to be of equal rank or higher to the person that has a conflict. And this alternate chain of command cannot be presumed acceptable prior to the issuance of a duly authorized advisory opinion. You will leave here knowing what those are and how to get one. This comes into play sometimes in legacy jobs, police departments, fire departments that sometimes attract people from the same family. Thank you. So someone might say, Lynn, if I recuse, what do? Do I stay at the table with my hands folded and my mouth closed? Do I leave the table and sit in the room? Do I leave the room? Recusal does not mean that a public official must leave the room if it's an open meeting. But I'll tell you right now, do yourself a favor and do it. Get out of the room after you're recused. Do you have to? No. Will it be a lot easier on you? Yes. It's best practice, and that's what we suggest. Let's say that you recuse and you go sit in this chair while your colleagues discuss and decide a matter. And let's say that you say, oh, I have a little break. I'm going to text home and see if anybody needs anything at CVS. So you pull out your phone and you text CVS. At the same time, one of your colleagues' phone, pings or whatever, and the person looks at it and it just says something, I don't know, a joke from a friend. My phone's going to ring the next morning. Okay, you know what they're going to say? So-and-so recused from the meeting, and the first thing they did was text somebody else at the table who answered the text, and then they discussed them. Leave it for him. Who needs the headache, right? Now, Executive session is another matter completely. If you recuse from a matter that's in executive session, you then have no more right to be in the room as any member of the public, and you must leave the room, okay? One more thing about recusal, and I mentioned it earlier, but it's worth repeating. If you recuse from a matter, you're not just recusing from the vote. That would just be an abstention. You are recusing from any discussions leading up to it. So if you have a matter that you have a conflict with, you're not going to take part and say, well, you know, for what it's worth, I know I'm not going to be voting, but here, no, you don't take part in any of it. Okay, contracts, we'll do this briefly. No person subject to the Code of Ethics may enter into any contract with a state or municipal agency unless the contract has been awarded through an open and public process, including prior public notice and subsequent public disclosure of all proposals considered and contracts awarded, okay? So if you have a little side hustle plowing snow in the winter, you're not going to say to your, to whoever hires someone to plow snow for the city, hey, save your time, save your energy, I got this, I got a truck, I move snow all the time, tell me when to be where, and I'll be there. Can't do that, okay? There are certain contracts for professional services that are customarily awarded without competitive bidding. Those aren't subject to competitive bidding, but they have to be awarded through a process of public notice and disclosure of financial details. And those are some examples of such contracts. Physicians, attorneys, engineers, architects, you get the idea. Thank you. Okay, let's talk secondary employment. Certain people that work for the city or the state or serve the city or state, especially those in public service, have other jobs. I want you to keep this in mind. You may have a private or public sector job in addition to your state or municipal position. However, you may not accept outside employment that does either or both of the following. Your outside employment cannot impair your independence of judgment with respect to your official duties here. Nor may it require or induce you to disclose confidential information that you acquired during the course of and by reason of your public duties as city council, okay? People occasionally ask the Ethics Commission for an advisory opinion as to whether they can accept secondary employment. So I'd like you to be familiar with what the Ethics Commission looks at before they make a decision. They're going to look at the nexus between your public duties and your proposed private employment. The work has to be completed outside of your normal work hours without the use of public resources. The public official or employee may not appear before their own agency. The work must be conducted outside of areas over which the official or employee has decision-making jurisdiction. And a public official or employee may not use their public position to solicit business or customers for a private endeavor, okay? Hopefully this will come as no surprise to anyone here. You may not use or disclose for financial gain confidential information acquired in the course of your official duties. And when I say for financial gain, I don't just mean for you, I mean for yourself, members of your family, your business associates, or your private employers. Next, gifts, popular topic with the Ethics Commission. If you participate in making decisions, and I know you do, you may not accept cash or forgiveness of debt from interested persons. What's an interested person? An interested person has a direct financial interest in a decision that you either make or you help to make. Next slide, please. What you may accept under the State Code of Ethics are things of value up to and including $25 per instance and $75 per year per interested person. Now, if your municipality has a zero tolerance policy on gifts, is that the situation here, my friends? Bravo. I say bravo. I think that's a great idea because it's so clean. You don't have to weigh, measure, figure out. If your municipality has a zero tolerance policy on gifts or one that is even more strict than the Ethics Commission, then you have to follow your municipalities. Let's say that a state agency, not the city of Providence in this case, says, yeah, Ethics Commission, we get it. They can't go accepting gifts from people who have a financial stake in a decision you're gonna make, but $25, really? What's that, a cup of coffee and a sandwich? We're gonna make it 100. No, can't do that. A little bit of history, once upon a time, I understand that this $25 limit was $150. And that $75 a year was $450. Things don't usually go backwards like that, right? With inflation, they usually crawl up. So clearly, some adjustments need to be made. All righty, transactions with subordinates. You may not engage in a financial transaction. What do I mean by that? Private employment or consulting, giving or receiving loans, monetary, political, or charitable contributions with an employee, contractor, or consultant over whom you exercise supervisory responsibilities. Okay, next slide, we have some exceptions. Financial transactions in the normal course of a regular commercial business or occupation. If you're driving home tonight, you stop at a Stop and Shop, and you're about to go through the checkout, and you see someone who's a subordinate to you working the register, you need not find another line to avoid a transaction with that subordinate. That's a transaction in the regular course of a commercial business, okay? Another example of an exception would be if the subordinate initiates the financial transaction, okay? And then there are certain charitable events that are sponsored by the highest official or governing body of a state or municipality. I know that in Rhode Island, we can give to the United Way, and that's okay because it's sponsored by the top. Okay. No person shall solicit or request, directly or through a surrogate, political contributions from a subordinate for whom in that official or employee's official duties and responsibilities, he, she, or they exercise supervisory responsibilities. Okay, now, there is a First Amendment right that we all have to contribute to any political campaign that we so choose. What this rule means is that you can give to whomever you want, but the person could not have solicited it from you, okay? That's a big one. Now, the Code of Ethics has several revolving door provisions. We're not going to cover them all tonight. We're going to cover a couple that will be of more interest to you given your positions. But I want you to know why we have these revolving door statutes, all right? The purpose is to prevent government employees and public officials from unfairly profiting from or otherwise trading upon the contacts, associations, and special knowledge that they acquired during their tenure as public servants. We have a cooling off period. It's a year. Next slide, please. So here's one example. No elected or appointed official may accept any appointment or election that requires approval by the body of which they are or were a member to any position which carries with it financial benefit. And this prohibition continues for 1 year after your termination of membership on that agency. The Ethics Commission may give its approval for a particular appointment if satisfied that denial of that employment, right, would create a substantial hardship, not for the person who wants the job, but for the body seeking it. So here's an example. Let's say that there's someone on the city council, any city council, who's a lawyer. And that person leaves the city council. Oh.
I said last because Councilwoman Harris behind me.
Oh, okay.
We were at a meeting, so we couldn't get here, so.
Oh, I understand completely. Welcome, welcome.
Thank you.
Okay, so let's say that there's someone on a city council that's a lawyer, and the lawyer leaves the city council, and 6 months later, the city council says, we need to hire a lawyer for something. You know who'd be great? Jill, she just left. She'd be great because not only is she a lawyer, but we've worked with her before, we know her, she knows us, she'll understand the concept, she'll understand our needs. Let's hire Jill to come work for us. She left 6 months ago. Can Jill do that? No, she cannot. So, you know how you could go and seek a hardship exception from the Ethics Commission to hire Jill in that case? Imagine going to the Ethics Commission and saying, we have searched far and wide through the 12,000 lawyers in the state of Rhode Island, and the only person who can do this job is Jill. So can we hire her? Let me know how you make out if you do that. okay? Here's one. No municipal elected official or school committee member, whether elected or appointed, because they handle differently in different towns, while holding office and for a period of 1 year after leaving municipal office, shall seek or accept employment with any municipal agency in the municipality in which that official serves or served. There's an exception for employment that was held at the time of that person's election or appointment and maintained the whole time, okay? Alrighty, you may not represent yourself or anyone else before the agency of which you are a member, by which you are employed, or before any other agency for which your agency has appointing authority. You may not serve as an expert witness before your agency, and these prohibitions continue for 1 year after you leave your public office or employment. So you not only can't appear before the city council, any board or commission or agency to which you appoint people, you may not appear before them either, without a hardship exception. Let's talk about that. Well, first let's talk about what we mean by representation. You may not represent yourself. You may not participate in the presentation of evidence or arguments before that agency, yours or one for which you have appointing authority, to try and influence the judgment of that agency in your favor or in favor of someone that you might be there on behalf of. Next slide. The exception. The Ethics Commission may grant what's called a hardship exception, allowing you to represent yourself before your own agency. To obtain an exception, you must request an advisory opinion. Let's sit here for a minute on this slide. Here's an example. And this has happened at least 3 times in the past 4 years. Someone who's on a zoning board wants to put a shed in his backyard at home. And I've had 3 of these. There are a lot of sheds going on. So the person's getting ready to put the shed in the yard, wants somewhere to put the grill and the bikes and the furniture in the summertime. I mean, in the wintertime. Hello. And so that person's getting ready to build a shed in the backyard and is taking a look at where it's going to go and says, oh, I got a problem with the setback requirement. I'm going to need a variance to put my shed in. And that means I have to go to the zoning board. Hey, wait, I'm on the zoning board. I can't go before my own agency. So what's a guy who needs a shed to do? You go to the Ethics Commission and you say, hey, could I get one of those hardship exceptions so I can put a shed in my backyard? I need to appear before the zoning board. Chances are very strong, as they have in the past, the Ethics Commission will say, yes, you may have such a hardship exception, but 2 things. You're not going to vote on the matter, right? And you are going to, I'm going to get back to you on that, my friend, that answer.
I'm coming back.
Oh, okay. So you may go before your own agency to ask for a shed, but you're not going to take part in the discussion or the vote, and you're going to let everybody at that meeting know that you got this advisory opinion, okay? So, guy builds a shed, keeps his stuff safe, and then the following year, the same guy buys a piece of property in town with a buddy, and they say, this land is perfect for development. Let's develop the land, we'll put a commercial building on it, we'll make a lot of money, but we need to go before the zoning board. Hey, I've been before the Ethics Commission before, I got one of those hardship exceptions. I'm going back and I'll get another one. Good luck with that. Do you think it's going to turn out the same way? It is not, and here's why. There is a difference between someone who wants to put a shed in their backyard so their kids' bicycles don't get ruined and the grill and the furniture can go in there, and somebody who goes before the Ethics Commission and says, I need to go before my own board so that I can enter into a new commercial venture with a buddy and make a lot of money. You have to wait until you're off the board for a year. Okay. Complaints, we do get them at the Ethics Commission. And so I just want you to know a little bit about these complaints. Anybody can file a complaint with the Ethics Commission against someone who's subject to the Code of Ethics. You need to do so on a form that we provide. These need to be signed under oath. Translation, no anonymous complaints to the Ethics Commission. They have to name the individual alleged to have violated the code. We call that person the respondent. They have to identify the respondent's public office, detail the specific acts which you allege violated the code, and these complaints aren't public unless and until they're accepted by Jason Grammett, the executive director. Also, the complainant's not a party to the action. They get the ball rolling. A couple of other things. If you're inclined to file a complaint with the Ethics Commission, you might want to just give us a call first, speak with an investigator, and just chat about it first, okay? Make sure you have the right form and you're going to include the right information. The other thing is, even though we prosecute complaints for people who have violated the law at the Ethics Commission, these complaints are civil in nature. They're not criminal, okay? The Ethics Commission does not put anyone in prison. That is not to say that someone who's before the Ethics Commission on a civil complaint isn't in some hot water with the Attorney General's office or the U.S. Attorney's office. It's just a different matter here. Okay, advisory opinions. This is pretty much the other half of my job and that of my colleague and friend Teodora Papa. Teddy and I are responsible for drafting probably 95% of the advisory opinions that leave our office. We thought it would be wonderful if you knew what they were and how to get one if you want one. So, an advisory opinion is a legal interpretation of the Code of Ethics. It is issued by the Ethics Commission. It provides specific guidance about a particular and impending circumstance, and it's based on the representations of the petitioner. What your takeaways are from this slide is, the Ethics Commission does not issue advisory opinions on hypotheticals, okay? Because these advisory opinions very much depend on the facts that support the request. And also, when it says it's based on the representations of the petitioner is the person asking for the advisory opinion. And no one's going to check out the facts. If you tell me these are the facts underlying my request, I'm not going to get an investigator and say, hey, check this out. They told me this, this, and this. Does that ring true? No, it's going to be whatever you tell us it is. And I'm just going to take a quick sip. Next slide, please. So, anybody subject to the Code of Ethics can ask for an advisory opinion. The time to do it is before you take official action. A couple of reasons. The Ethics Commission does not issue advisory opinions on past conduct, prospective conduct only. Better an advisory opinion today than a complaint tomorrow. You might call me up and say, Lynn, I was part of a vote in November, and I think it was okay, but can I get an advisory opinion confirming that in case anybody asks? You may not. The time to have asked for that advisory opinion would have been before you take that vote. Some people will call and say, I need an advisory opinion on a matter coming up before the city or town council. And I'll say, okay, it's at 7 o'clock tonight. They'll call me at 3 in the afternoon. So one, you can't get one that soon. So what's a person to do? You can do two things. You can just recuse, keep it clean and just recuse and stay out of it. Or if it's very important to you to vote on that matter, try and get it kicked over. Say, look, I've asked for an advisory opinion, or I'm going to ask for an advisory opinion. Can we hold this till I get one? So those are two ways to handle that. Next slide, please. How to get an advisory opinion. Mail, hand deliver, or email to us a letter. We need your signature and the following info. We need to know how to contact you. Please give us your name, phone number, and email address. Tell us a little bit about the powers of your agency, what your position is, describe your duties. Describe the nature of the potential conflict as best you can and summarize the relevant facts as best you can. You can't be expected to know everything we need to know. If you've ever sought an advisory opinion, you'll know that you usually get a call from the attorney who's going to draft it saying, I just need a little more information. It's not to be judgy or embarrass you or annoy you. We know what facts we need to collect in order to figure out what parts of the code we're going to apply and what former advisory opinions we're going to look at for help doing yours. And let us know if you have any time constraints. The State Ethics Commission meets twice a month, once a month in the summer usually, always on a Tuesday morning, always at 9, across the street on the 8th floor at 40 Fountain. We had a commission meeting this past Tuesday. Time constraints. We try and respond to the requests by drafting the opinions in the order in which they're received. But sometimes somebody's in more of a hurry than somebody else. So we want to be as accommodating as we can. After you submit your request for an advisory opinion, you're going to get a letter saying, we got it. You are going to get a draft recommendation prepared by a staff attorney. And when I say draft, it's going to say draft in big letters across every page. You know why? That advisory opinion doesn't mean a thing unless and until it's been approved by at least 5 members of the Ethics Commission, and that's regardless of how many are sitting. So it's not just like a simple majority. 5 people have to approve it. Now, you are strongly encouraged, though not required, to attend the Ethics Commission meeting at which your advisory opinion request will be considered. All right, 1, it's a wonderful way to see how everything works, but 2, they might have a question for you. And if the person who drafted your advisory opinion can't answer it, and they can't go on without knowing the answer, they may have to kick it over to another date. Now, do they sometimes get put through and a petitioner's not there? Yes, but it's really strongly recommended that you come. Also, if it is approved, you're gonna get a written copy. It's also gonna go on our website, and you should know that both your request for the advisory opinion and the advisory opinion are public records. So if someone calls us up with an ACRA request and says, I'd like a copy of the advisory opinion issued to so-and-so and the letter seeking it, we have to turn it over. So if you go on our website, you will see advisory opinions dating back 20 years. So you might say, you know, I don't know if I want to get an advisory opinion. Let me take a look at the website and see if anybody's ever asked anything like this before. And you type in the search terms, up pop 5, 6, 11 advisory opinions, and you start to read them. No, that's not me. No, that's not me. You get to one and you go, well, but that's my question in this advisory opinion. You change the names, and that's me. I don't need no stinking advisory opinion. I'm going to read this one, and I'm going to do exactly what they told this person to do. Oh, please don't do that. Okay? The only person who can rely with certainty on an advisory opinion that's been issued by the Ethics Commission is the person for whom it was issued. Again, they turn on their specific facts. Now, do read the one you found, get an idea of which way the wind might be blowing when you go before the Ethics Commission, and you might see that one cited as an example. But your facts could differ ever so slightly, either in your favor or against you. We're almost near the end. You've been hanging in there so well. I very much appreciate it. Financial disclosure. You can see here who's required to file financial disclosure statements, but the important thing here is you are, and you know that. So next slide, please. I want you to understand the purpose of financial disclosure. We don't do it to torture people by any means. Financial disclosure helps ensure people acting in the public interest aren't using their public positions to further their private financial interests. Financial disclosure helps identify conflicts between a public official's financial interests and his, her, or their public office. They increase the overall transparency in government appointments and decision-making, and they help further the public's confidence in government. And what's wrong with that? No one's going to ask you what you paid for your house. No one's going to ask you how much money you have in the bank. Those are not the types of questions. Let's look at a couple of examples of questions. The yearly financial statement requires the listing of certain assets and sources of income, but does not require divulging net worth. Information that's required includes the following. We need to know the name of your employer, any real estate other than your principal place of residence, businesses in which you or your spouse or dependent children have at least a 10% or $5,000 ownership or investment interest. Next slide. There are some questions related to trust income and out-of-state travel provided for or paid by someone else. And this one's important, okay? You will be asked to list all positions of management, as well as positions of director, officer, partner, trustee, or positions of a similar nature in any entity held by you, your spouse, or your dependent child, regardless of whether you're paid for your service. You don't know how many times we hear, look, I'm on this board, but I don't get any money from it. Point is you have a position of power. You can affect change and make decisions that affect people, whether or not you're kind enough to do it on your own time. And this, again, includes businesses as well as nonprofit organizations or groups, even if no compensation is received. Thank you. You must disclose debts of more than $1,000 to anyone other than most family members, financial institutions where the debt is secured by a mortgage on your principal residence, and debts arising from credit card transactions. These are some examples. This is how to reach us. Many times, people will just want to call and have an informal discussion. And myself and my colleagues do that every day. We enjoy speaking with people. What I'd ask you to keep in mind is that if you and I have a conversation on the phone about a question you have, I can only advise you informally. Anything I say to you is not binding on the Ethics Commission without an advisory opinion. Sometimes that's enough to talk it out, okay? So just keep that in mind. I'm going to take a moment here to also plug the availability of a pre-recorded online ethics training, which is new only since September of 2021. Took 18 months to put together. But if you can't get enough of this stuff, and who can't, you can access ethics training online. So you have been delightfully attentive, for which I'm grateful. I will do my best to answer any questions that you have. Yes,
I have a couple, actually.
okay.
Is there a statute of limitations for an ethics complaint?
There is, it is 6 years.
6 years?
Yes.
Okay. Next question, I'm gonna just keep rolling if you don't mind. If that person.
Keep them softballs like
Yes,
that.
if that person is no longer here in the city, then that complaint still be filed.
If it's
Let me ask
happened,
you, let me
I'm sorry.
go into that. I filed a complaint against a certain person in the city, and I went through the Providence Ethics Commission, which was a mistake. I found out, I should have done both, but I thought I had to go Providence first.
Sure.
Let them decide, if not, then go to Rhode Island.
Thought it was like an appeal
Well,
type
not an
situation.
appeal, but I thought that they had to make the decision. So if I went to Rhode Island, I'm thinking you would say, well, why didn't you go to Providence? You have an ethics commission. But unfortunately, our ethics commission doesn't have any team and bite and people helping them out. And COVID hit, 2 years went by, and they just came back a couple months ago and said that they found issues with it, but they weren't gonna act on it because they didn't have any lawyers or anything. So I guess my question to you is, if I filed it again with, it's within the 6 years, I can still do it even though that person's not here?
I believe so. Now, what you might want to do is call the office and ask to speak with an investigator, right? You call Pete Mancini, if you like, he's the chief investigator, and just ask him the question. I think it's going to be 6 years is 6 years, whether or not you've done something about it, or it's not like there was an adjudication on it.
No, it's only,
Plus,
it
it's, right.
was 4 years ago, so it's
I think
within
you'll be
the
all
6
set.
year timeframe.
But rather than have you get everything together again and send it off, and, well, why don't you call the office, and, or even if you want to call me, I'll
And
hook
his
you up
name
with
is what,
one.
Peter Mancini?
Peter Mancini you could call, or Gary. Kevin's good too, he's newer, but you might want to ask for Pete, he's the chief investigator. I think you can, but,
Thank you.
any other questions? I know it's a lot of stuff to just, yes, that's.
Just, I guess I'm going into it. Do district committees also have to come under the code of ethics and all this stuff too?
Do who?
Your ward district committees. They're elected on the ballot, okay. When you,
Thank you, Madam President.
if you step off a board, which is probably the best thing to do.
Not a bad
Right,
idea.
not a bad idea. If you're a founder and you're listed as a founder, is it best to just have them remove you as a founder or co-founder of the organizations?
I think it is.
Right?
I mean,
Is it perception?
you mean if you're like, yeah, perception. If you're not on the board, but you're listed on the board, well, first of all, people are how would anyone know that you're not on the board anymore if your name's on it? But, yeah. And you know what, as far, like, some people are on other boards, and, public servants, we're usually in for a penny, in for a pound, right? If you're on one thing, you're on several things. But there have been people that say, I don't know whether, I can stay on the board and still serve on this town council or city council. And what we'll sometimes say is, no one's gonna tell you can't be on another board, but you gotta stop and think, how often am I gonna need to recuse? Is this maybe once every 2 years, this person, this board with which I'm affiliated will have a matter that's gonna be impacted by a decision I make? How can I serve the best? Is it as someone who's separated myself from this board and I can take part in votes that would impact them? Or is it to stay on the board as a decision maker, but just recuse from any matters that would involve them? Okay? And once you do leave a board, there's no like revolving door as you have to be off the board for a year. Once you break that business associate relationship, it's broken. Okay?
Doing business within your ward.
Within your ward?
Yeah, or even in the city. That's a very, for example, if you're a realtor or providing various services as a multi-service agencies, that, not.
See, what we're kind of focusing on here, and I absolutely adore everybody's being so attuned into appearance of impropriety. I am a broken record with it. And I'm gonna have a t-shirt made that says, just because you can, doesn't mean you should, right? But technically, there are other people, their view is, look, if it's not a violation of the code, I'm gonna do it. It looks bad, it's not a violation. So I'm glad we're talking about all this. The code is monitoring the official actions that you take in your official capacity here on a city council. We all have private lives, right? So we're concerned with your official activity. So if you were to take official action on, a matter involving one of your business associates. So could you kind of provide a more detailed example, whether it's a hypothetical?
No, just in general.
Okay, but I like your style on avoiding that. Let's just go to someone else.
Yep.
Yeah, yes, sir?
Well, I'm gonna say, I don't know if this makes sense, it's late in the evening, so. I was going to pursue a complaint, file one, so I called, the Ethics Commission.
The state or the city?
State
Okay.
Ethics Commission, and what they had essentially said, is that I would need witnesses who would, and this was months ago, so I might actually be misstating things.
Months ago or?
Months ago, yeah.
Okay.
And they say you need witnesses, they need to essentially write a statement, and obviously it needs to be the truth, right? And so when I guess I'm gonna get to this point, when I went back to those witnesses, they all said, look, I don't wanna be like essentially subpoenaed, this would be a huge mess for me. I guess like the process, I think, sometimes discourages folks from moving forward because it's very intimidating. Does that make sense?
It makes perfect sense, but, a complaint is in stages. And I don't know if the person with whom you spoke might have been taking in what you said and kind of giving to some thought how this might go down and just wanting to prepare you for how it's gonna go. But the standard for acceptance of a complaint is pretty darn low. You know what the very first step is when a complaint comes in? The executive director has to look at it and say, if this is true, this would be a violation of the code of ethics. That's how you get accepted as a complaint. If this is true, this would be a violation. That's kind of a low standard, because there's also a thing in the code, a section in the code that says you can get in trouble for filing false or frivolous complaints. And they kind of weed themselves out. You can kind of smell a frivolous complaint if you can't meet that standard, a complaint that says, I suspect that this might be going, because if you think about it, this is probably what's going on here. Well, come on, give me some facts. Give me, I was at the meeting and I saw this, man take a vote when his cousin was on a matter involving his cousin's land or something like that. So I don't know. I'm trying to.
Like I had, we had pictures from various, I don't want to share.
But it fell under the code? Did they say it all doesn't fall under the code of ethics?
Like when I had called, like.
Yeah.
Yeah, I believe so.
That's the situation. So sometimes I'll get a call, that says, I want to file a complaint. I called my doctor, and the doctor would not release my files, and that's unethical. And I say, is the doctor an elected or appointed official, municipal or state official, and employee? No, private practice, but that's unethical. And people, understandably so, get confused when I have to say, you can engage in unethical behavior, someone can engage in unethical behavior that is not necessarily a violation of the code of ethics. Because some of these people aren't subject to the code of ethics, right? So maybe, is it possible that the person against whom you're alleging the wrongdoing was not subject to the code of ethics?
Okay, so maybe laws were broken. I'm pretty, like,
But is the person who allegedly broke those laws, is that person subject to the code of ethics? As an elected or appointed official or employee?
now that I'm thinking about it, possibly, that, maybe not.
At least that would explain, because when you first said it, I'm going, what investigator would tell him that?
Yeah, yeah, no, this makes sense.
But they might just say, boy, that sounds awful, but if they're not subject to the code, you got the wrong table, right? Not my section.
Yeah, that's.
But thanks for the question. Yes,
Just a
yes.
piggyback question, do political candidates fall into the code of ethics?
Only for purposes, well, let's say the political candidate happens to be a municipal employee somewhere, they'd fall for that. But do you mean by virtue of their candidacy?
Correct.
Only to the extent that they're required to file financial disclosure statements.
Oh, wow.
Okay, so I'm sorry, I cut you off there. I did not go through the correct channel then.
Okay.
I think now that I'm thinking about that, same.
Yeah. So if you are a political candidate, you have to file within 30 days of announcing your candidacy or filing with the Board of Elections your notice of intent. Yes, who has a question? Hello?
Only want to say thank you, because this is training you're giving in the Chrome classes, so.
Oh, I just saw this lady recently.
Yeah, in YouTube, so, yeah.
Wow, groupies.
I'm looking for the pictures of it, it's the same training, so.
But you know what? Nothing like repetition to have something sink in, right?
Yeah, yes.
Thank you for coming
Thank you
again.
for giving like this, because over there I came, so I had this.
Yeah, I didn't make that, I thank Tina for that. In color, no less, now you're just showing off. Any other questions? Yes, sir.
So you have a business, right, as a family member?
Yep.
And you get a contract to the city, that's a conflict of interest?
If you have a business,
Family member.
your family member has a business and gets a contract, was it?
You get a contract with, let's say, an auto mechanic.
Okay, now, if the person subject to the code can't be the one to decide whether that family member gets the job or the business, right? Because that would be taking action that would impact the family member. Even if you don't pick the family member, if the family member's resume is in the pile, I'll just say if your family member is seeking a position and you're the decision maker, you can't take part in that.
That's a conflict.
That's absolute conflict, with a capital C. Okay.
So if you're a realtor,
Yes,
and a city building comes up, and you're a city official, you cannot sell it.
if you're a city official and a realtor in private life, the question is, can you sell that building, or, well, who's gonna make the decision that you're going to be the realtor to sell that building? Who makes that choice?
Because it's the internet, it's public. You're a realtor, you can say, you can bring the customer to show the building and say, look, I got this building for sale, you have the license, but you're a city official.
Well, is it a private building?
City building.
It's a city official has the
License.
has a real estate, but has the, what do you call it when it's real estate?
MLS.
Yeah, on a city building? How'd that happen?
Right, you're the showing.
Oh, a showing realtor.
Yeah.
So That's in your private capacity.
Yes.
So and so
You're showing a city building.
that you just, okay, for a buyer.
For buying.
Sounds like a conflict, because there's money involved. Sounds like a conflict because there's money involved, the city will be paying a percentage of that to the realtor. So how are you gonna get money from the city that you represent?
Yeah,
But at the same time, you represent the buyer.
it's messy, but it's one of those things, those are the things that advisory opinions are made of. And I appreciate and understand completely when some people want to say, oh, Lynn's here, I'm gonna see if I can get like a little mini advisory opinion on this matter. You can't do that. It's gonna be useless to you, and I probably lose my job. So I just speak in hypotheticals, but if you have a specific matter that you want to discuss further, give us a call and we'll we can get an advisory opinion on it. Because like I said, what if I'm not asking all of the questions necessary to get to the end? Any other questions? Yes, sir.
Curious about like previous financial interests. So for example, I'll give you the exact situation. So I obviously represent a district in which my alma mater is in. And so I attended Brown for undergrad and grad school, but I make a lot of decisions related to my former alma mater. How does a situation like that work?
Guilty.
No, I mean, you went to Brown.
Yeah, I mean.
You don't own Brown.
Correct.
You're not employed by Brown.
Correct.
The person that you're dealing with, the person representing Brown who might appear before you on behalf of Brown is not your business associate or a relative.
Right.
I mean, not smelling anything.
A number of years.
I just asked that because that's a scenario where it's like, there was a financial.
Absolutely. But yeah, so, ooh.
It's over though.
Smooth.
Yeah, it's over, yeah.
If you know a professor, then loyalty forever.
And it's not knowing, it's not necessarily knowing.
But I say that too, I also say that to say, I think people have a certain amount of loyalty and bias when it comes to that.
Okay, so here's the other thing.
I don't, people know my position.
Right, I would ask you, thank you, I would ask you if you felt personally that you could not take part in that matter without bias or prejudice. And that's only something you could ask yourself, because I'm not hearing anything, thank you so much, Leo. I'm not hearing anything that would technically have you sit down. It's not your family member, it's not your business associate, it's not your employer, it's your alma mater. And if you said before that meeting, you know what, Brown can do no wrong in my head, or I hate Brown. Anything I can do to, whack them, I'm going to. Then maybe you ought to just exercise the discretion to say, I think I'll sit this one out. There's no quorum issue. But generally speaking, I think you're okay. Yes.
What about timing? What if it's been a number of years that he left Brown? Would that still be a factor?
It could be the day after graduation, and that's enough. But your point is a good one because it puts a little more distance.
Exactly. If it's been,
right?
How long ago?
A decade ago.
Yeah.
So there should be no relationship at all.
Yeah, I think it even lessens the potential appearance of impropriety. Anything else?
Just on the gifts of birthdays.
You have to put me on retainer, sir. I'm teasing you, please, I love your question.
Birthday and anniversary gifts. It's a zero, can you address that? So you can't accept anything of monetary value of the city of Providence.
Yes.
And the state is 25.75. For birthday gifts, is that also falls within, it has to be.
From an interested person or from your child?
No, from friends. They're not interested, but you can still receive. Hey, a friend of mine is so gracious enough, he's gonna give me an iPhone that's worth $1,000.
Wow.
Wow.
Where do you
No,
get your?
I'm just saying, that's.
Right, so, let me ask you this. You cannot have enough friends.
No, that's an example of it, right?
So is that friend an interested person? Does that friend have a financial interest in a decision that you're gonna make?
So that's the question, okay.
Yes,
Yes.
yes,
That's the question and that's the answer.
yeah.
Say we are approached by someone that we appoint, that we have the position of appointment, and they would like to treat us to dinner, lunch, drinks. I just want to confirm that we cannot have that. If we choose to meet with them, we just pay for ourselves, is that correct?
That's a big heck yes.
So under the, just to reiterate, so under the state code, so because we're bound by both, and I say we as a city employee or official, appointed or elected, because we're bounded by both, the city code is a lot stringent than the state, so you follow the city, excuse me. So we have a zero top policy, so I'll give you an example in terms of just regular, I could be across the street in Dunkin' Donuts, and I know I'm just gonna pretend I'm part of the city council for a second, and someone who's about to come before the city council is behind me and says, hey, I'm gonna buy you a coffee, and you know, we're gonna discuss the issue. I have to say no, because even though the coffee is only $2, it's still zero, but it can just, if someone is behind them, they could be like, oh, so you see? City council member Felix just got a coffee, and this person is gonna be before them in a second. So it just gives that feeling of something's not right, so just, I would always say just err on the side of caution, pay your own meals, or.
Yeah, you know what we used to say? Anybody want to buy a coffee before you're on the city council?
Yeah.
Right?
That's right.
And what about the other?
What about the reverse? So like if you're having lunch with them and then you pay for lunch?
You can gift down.
Yes.
Okay.
Buy all the coffees.
What?
Buy all the coffee.
Yeah, if we buy all the coffee, that's fine. Okay.
Yeah. I'd like to revisit your question on the, on whether, if your employee appears before you, right? What we worry about is, like, I'm thinking that, and without more specific facts, and if that does happen, feel free to give a call. I think at the very least, it would be an appearance of impropriety, and you'd want to consider sitting that one out. Okay? Thanks. Any other questions? This is more fun than I usually have at training, I'm not gonna lie. Yes.
Okay, I always get messed up when the financial forms, are they due in April?
They are due the last Friday in April.
And when are they considered late?
Okay, so on the last Friday in April, they're considered late if they're not in. That having been said, no one at the Ethics Commission is looking at their watch at midnight on a deadline and saying, oh, Saturday morning, let's go after these people. If your financial disclosure form was not filed on time, then you're gonna get a call. It might be in a week, it might be in a couple of weeks, it might be after, and someone's just gonna say, hey, it's Kevin from the Ethics Commission. I'm wondering if you forgot to file your financial disclosure form, or if you lost your PIN, or if you need any help, how can we help you get that done? Now, if those calls go unheeded and you know, yeah, it's in the mail, I'll get it, or not in the mail, we've done it, and I'll get it to you shortly, and you don't, eventually complaints will be filed. But we try to be kind and helpful, yes.
I disagree on that.
Tell me.
Because what happened was my son was my treasurer, and he went out at 11 o'clock that night when it was due, and there was a glitch in the computer, and he didn't get it in until like 10 after 1. Oh, Board of Elections, though.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, that was okay.
As soon as you said your son was a treasurer.
They had me, but I called them, and they took it.
I was gonna let you vent a little, but I'm like,
Yep.
not my table. Yes,
So, in the financial, you have to report that you are a board member,
yes,
like, even inside the city?
yes.
What?
I think it's
Or do
referring
you?
to committee assignments.
Oh, committee, no. My bad.
We have, board members, one in either.
Water support board,
Water support.
Yeah, I'd put it on there, why not?
That will be for the next year.
For next year. You can
Next
amend
year.
your form.
Is it a year?
Next year or this year?
For April.
For this year.
In April.
Come
This
on.
upcoming April, you have it.
2022.
So, right, so April of 2023, your annual financial statement for 2022 is due. It's kind of like the taxes.
So your right one will be for next year.
Yes.
Although, can I offer a quick 2 cents? So I had to amend my forms, and what I did was that I went all years back. I just went in, amended everything to reflect the actual stuff, and filed an amendment. I would recommend personally to, if you can, just file an amendment. That way you just, nobody has to say because you're not doing the right thing. Especially if you can amend the form, why not? I would recommend it.
I'm sorry, just to follow up, make an amendment on any change that you had on any board?
No, so let's say, for example, like in my case personally, I'll just use my example as a reference. So I'm a member of an organization as a board member, and I wasn't aware that I had to put it on the form. I'm only on my second term, so the first time around, I never put it. So what I did was that I went into my form and just added that I'm a board member for this organization, which I'm still part of. But I just wanted my forms to reflect that what the reality was, that I was at the board at that time, so that there's no issues with that makes sense. So it's not like, oh, I've been in the board 25 years ago, it's just the boards that I was currently at, while I'm at this position. These are the boards that I'm part, I include.
Thank you.
So no committee assignments have to be reported, but what about commissions and boards within the city? Like I'm on the PRA, so I will have to disclose that at the right time.
Yes.
Okay.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you.
Good job.
Thank you.
Very, very much.
Thank you, Rosa and Annabella, and big thank you to Lauren and Tina from the clerk's office for organizing us.
Yes.
Thank you.
Nicely done.
Thank you.
With no further business, we need a motion to council as a whole. I'm looking for a motion to close the meeting.
Aye.
So moved.
Motion made and seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, thank you all so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.